So it's not that just getting more sleep allows you to perform better. Consistently getting about the same amount of sleep is better for performance than just getting more. You could very well do better on 6 than on 8. Ending your sleep near the end of a 90-minute cycle, say at the end of 6 hours, in many cases is better for you than sleeping an additional hour, 7 hours, and waking up in the middle of an ultradian cycle. There's a study done by a colleague of mine at Stanford that showed that positive anticipation about the next day events actually is a powerful metric for creating quality sleep, even if the sleep is very reduced. Work done out of Harvard Medical. It was Bob Stickgold's lab, and Emily Hoagland did this study that showed looking at OChem, performance on OChem scores. Okay, so organic chemistry at Harvard's a pretty tough subject, highly motivated. A number of very good control groups in this study. What she showed was that consistency of total sleep duration was far more important for performance on these exams than total sleep duration itself. So it's not that just getting more sleep allows you to perform better. Consistently getting about the same amount of sleep is better for performance, at least on OChem, than just getting more. You could very well do better on 6 than on 8. There are a few other things that turn out to be strong parameters for success in this domain. For instance, your entire life, waking or asleep, is broken up into these 90-minute ultradian cycles. If you look at ability to attend or do math problems or do anything, drive, performance tends to ramp up slowly within a 90-minute cycle, peak, and then come down at the end of that 90-minute cycle. And in sleep, we go through these stage 1, 2, 3, 4, REM, etc. Ending your sleep near the end of a 90-minute cycle, say at the end of 6 hours, in many cases is better for you than sleeping an additional hour, 7 hours, and waking up in the middle of an ultradian cycle. And there are a few apps that can measure this based on body movements and things like that, that your alarm go off at the end of an ultradian cycle. If you wake up in the middle of an ultradian cycle, sometimes, not always, you can be very groggy for a long period of time. I certainly do better on 6 hours than I do on 7. I happen to like an 8-hour sleep. It feels great, but I haven't slept an entire 8 hours without waking up in the middle of the night at some point in, I don't know, forever. I can't remember. It's probably some point in infancy, and I function well during the day. I think that that's an important parameter, is how do you feel during the day? Almost everybody experiences some sort of dip in energy in the late afternoon, or what would correlate to their temperature peak. And that's a good time of day to get either a 90-minute or less nap, or if you're not a napper or you can't nap, feet elevated has been shown to be good for clear out of some of this. The glymphatic system is this kind of like sewer system of the brain that you can clear stuff out. So legs elevated, or one thing that I'm a big proponent of and that my lab has been studying is what I now call NSDR, non-sleep deep rest. And this is just lying down, but non-sleep deep rest is allowing your system to drop into states of real calm that allow you to get better at falling asleep later, and they can be very restorative for cognitive and motor function. There's at least one study out of Denmark that shows that the basal ganglia, which is an area of the brain that's involved in motor planning and action, one of these 20-minute non-sleep deep rest protocols resets levels of neuromodulators like dopamine in the basal ganglia to the same levels that they were right after a long night's sleep. So I also respectfully or semi-respectfully disagree with the idea that you can't recover lost sleep. What does that mean? I mean, that there's no IRS for sleep. So what does it mean to be in debt for sleep? If you're falling asleep during the day and you're sleepy, like you're falling asleep, that's a good sign of insomnia. It means you're not sleeping enough at night. If you're fatigued during the day, but you're not falling asleep, so you're just exhausted, but you're not finding yourself falling asleep in meetings and in conversation, then chances are you're fatiguing your system through something else.
I find that it's like magic that a short nap does as much good and often better than a longer one. For me, subjective.
What would be a longer one? Longer than 90 minutes?
No, like 90 minutes, but longer than 90 minutes, like 2 hours.
Yeah, that's starting to drop you into REM sleep. And even if it's a tiny amount of REM sleep, people can come out of those naps kind of disoriented.
Right.
I mean, remember, in sleep, space and time are totally uncoupled. And so that's an odd state to re-enter the world in if you're not going to stay there for a while, like for a good night's sleep. I think a 20-minute nap is pretty fantastic.
If you were to recommend to the general populace, what's a good one where you say to friends? Is 20 minutes a good
20 or 30 minutes. 20 or 30 minutes, because unless you're sleep deprived, you're going to stay out of REM sleep, rapid eye movement sleep. If you're sleep deprived, you'll drop right into it. If you've ever traveled and you're really jet lagged, you go to the hotel, you lay down for 1 second, all of a sudden you're just like, you're in a psychedelic dream, which can be pretty great too. But I think that 20, 30 minutes, and if you can't sleep, some people have trouble napping, then learning to relax the body as much as possible, like trying to remove all expression from your face, completely letting your body kind of float. If people have a hard time relaxing when they're awake, there's some clinically and research tested hypnosis protocols that are cost-free and that teach you how to just completely release the alertness button and you just start drifting. Now, the problem is if you don't have an alarm or something to go off, the other day I did one, and I'm almost embarrassed to say this, but there's a component of it where you actually are supposed to let your hand float up because it's a hypnosis script. I woke up an hour later and my hand was still floating.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and
awesome.
I was completely relaxed. So hypnosis
awesome.
Hypnosis is just a matter of going deep relaxation, narrowing of context, and it's all self-imposed. A lot of people think that hypnosis is like the stage thing with the pendant and the chicken, people fucking like chickens. Yeah. But real hypnosis is self-hypnosis. You're learning to. It involves some shifts in the way that the hypnotic induction involves looking up, closing your eyes, slowly, deep breath, and then imagining yourself floating. And people vary on a scale of about 1 to 4, 4 being the most easily hypnotized. There are a few people who it's very hard for them to allow themselves to go into these states. But for most people, they're gone. And it's nice if you can have access to those states, because when you come out of it, you feel amazing. You feel like you slept the whole night.